Hi everybody, Colin Stevenson here. Today is very special. I did an interview earlier with Dr. Ellie Harper. She's a psychologist from the Wirral, down past Liverpool in the UK. And it's a very, very special video. And I'm going to let John tell you why, because we don't usually get psychologists or anyone in the kind of medical field willing to look into deeper things within their realm of work. John, do we?
No, so for the last 15 years, I've helped numerous psychologists, counselors, and therapists with the intangible drivers, and it has definitely helped them all. And none of them have ever come out publicly to say I've helped them, which is okay. I am, Colin and I just care about people getting help. So it's never bothered me, and I'm not mad at any of those people. But Dr. Ellie Harper is the first person to actually, especially a psychologist, to come out and publicly say how this helps her.
Yeah, thank you, John. So what I'm going to do is just quickly, before I show everybody the clip for Ellie and I, the intangible drivers is what drives us, our bodies and our minds, our souls moving forward in life and allows us to gain energy. So we're going to put Ellie and my video on just now, and then you and I will come back in and commentate after, John. Hi everybody, Colin Stevenson here. Tonight we have a treat for you. I am joined by psychologist Dr. Ellie Harper. Hi Ellie.
Hi Colin.
Hi. Now Ellie has been a psychologist for the last 8 years. She qualified in 2013 and absolutely loves her job, unlike so many people on this planet, which is an absolute plus. Now Ellie and I met through a business meeting. That was probably about 5 months ago now.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And we got talking and we had a great conversation. We spoke about the intangible drivers through Flowcess. And the more I spoke about kind of John at Flowcess and how the intangible drivers worked, obviously the more it kind of sparked up your interest and allowed you to start looking at things from a different point of view. Now, we talk about mindset quite a lot, you and I, and we talk about helping people and how to do it. Now, obviously, with you being a psychologist, how do you feel the intangible drivers that we've been working with and working together over the last 5 months, how do you feel the difference or the compatibility of the two?
Well, it's just been a bit of a revelation for me. So it's a really strange feeling to describe. I feel that I have been working with people on some level in terms of their intangible drivers ever since I've been a psychologist, but I've never really had the words to put on that. So I've kind of felt that I've known that people are unique individuals, and that, I've always appreciated that each person that is sitting in front of me is, unique and has all these different qualities and different history and all this kind of stuff. And I vibe that off people, but I've never had the words to kind of explain that or, understand it and explain it to my clients. So since I've known about this, about uniqueness and people's intangible drivers, and understood what that meant, and how to understand people's uniqueness and how to look for that, and how to use that to help people going forward in their lives, it's just massively opened up things for me in terms of the work that I'm doing with my clients. So I feel that working with people's intangible drivers and psychology and mental health are highly compatible. And in fact, actually, I think that going forward, intangible drivers has to be part of psychology and mental health.
Love that. Now, just for the people watching, I would like to speak more about intangible drivers. Just now, worldwide, we're using personality tests, and these usually show people when they're under stress or when they're working hard, what their traits are and how they behave, but nothing shows the person. So an intangible driver is something that we can't see, we can't feel, and we can't measure until obviously we've met John and Flowcess. So everybody has a why and everybody has a how. A personality test and the traits can change at the drop of a hat. And the way that I like to explain this to, if you've got a client and they're given £1 million, they then act like a client that's got £1 million. If somebody came back the next day and said, that wasn't my money to give you, and they take the £1 million back off of them, the client will then act like a person that's just had £1 million taken off them. So their personality changes. And even deeper still, 2 days before that, they didn't have anything. They didn't have it, and they didn't have it taken off them. So personality is a massive, massive thing. And how we behave is very to do with the situation, or how we are in our life at the moment, how things are settling. Now, you and I, we're both compassion server. We're both compassion why, and we're server how. So compassion why means that you and I have the ability to vibe people without having to use words. And I know you were talking about putting the words in, that you didn't have the words. Fortunately for you and I, we don't need to have those words. And we're able to feel and know things on a different level. And then the server is always wanting to help people and serve them the way they need to be served based on what we felt. Now, my next question for you would be, in terms of your training, okay, did you do anything to do with maybe vibing your client? Were you taught much to do with being able to feel and maybe put some of yourself into it, or do you feel it was more clinical?
Yeah, so during my training, there is a focus, certainly, or there was certainly a focus in my training. My doctorate was in counselling psychology and not clinical psychology, slightly different training. But in my training, yes, there is some emphasis on on use of self, basically being able to tune into your own experience and figure out what that is telling you about your client. Now, that always came very naturally to me, and I now kind of know why, because I am compassion why, like you said. But yeah, so there is, and within, there's lots of different theoretical models and approaches within psychology, and how you use yourself might be taught differently depending on the approach. So in psychodynamic approaches, we get taught about transference and countertransference, which is kind of that description of the things that we feel in response to the client, and then how that comes out through us kind of back to the client again. And this, in different psychological models, this can be kind of based on different experiences that we've had in our own lives, and basically kind of what the client brings might trigger stuff in us that is kind of related to our own lives. And there's a lot of work around separating that stuff out. What of what I'm feeling, it belongs to my client, and what is actually my stuff that I need to deal with. So there is a lot of emphasis on self-awareness and being able to tune in to what's going on in those kind of dynamics between therapist and client in session. So yes, that is there in the training, and a very big part of training, but not in the way that we're now talking about things, in terms of people's uniqueness and who people are at the level of their mind and soul.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love the way you went deeper there and spoke about the transference of, obviously, it's energy that you pick up. A vibe is an energy, it's a frequency that you pick up on yourself. And I found this at an early age, right up until maybe about 18 months ago, when I met John. And I always struggled to differentiate what I was feeling compared to, it doesn't have to be a client, it was a friend, family member, stranger, because being compassion, we tend to be the magnets for people to come up and offload of us, like as a stranger. It's like we've got, come and talk to me and give me your problems written all over their face. And what we find is because they feel us and they understand that we're more empathetic. They understand that we're probably more understanding, and the compassion kind of vibes out of us, you know. So people don't always have to know the words for things, but I believe it's always better to have words modeled and things that we can have tangibly that works on the intangible. And we talk about unconscious confrontations. Now, and this is where, like, I understand with psychology and the kind of bigger practices coming through the kind of university and things like that, the diagnosis is always there. So you're always able to diagnose, you're always able to ask questions for more understanding, you're always able to, you know, to kind of bring information out. But I find what you're not able to do, and this is, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is that you're not able to kind of take people and move them on. You know, you take them out of the hole that they're in and you allow them to kind of help, you know, from falling back in. But because, and John talks about this, there's stages 1 to 10 of psychology, and he believes that psychology is levels 3 to 10, and levels 1 and 2 are missed. And this is what allows people to gain energy and move on. So not purposely do I believe that psychologists are there not to do their best, because I believe they do, and I believe you always have done, and everybody else have, and I really respect your position, the amount of work that you do, the amount of learning you did. You know, I can never put that down, and you guys are more than needed. But what I believe is that the psychologists and anything supporting around this kind of side of things need to be supported more with words that they're able to use and move on, and such as the intangible drivers, because I believe this could allow things to be opened up quicker, and not only allow them to go on their journey, but gain energy, be understood, and then they can then explain to people how to be spoken to. And I know that I'm kind of dribbling on here, but we were taught from school level to speak to people the way that we want to be spoken to. Now, obviously, through psychology, you understand that that's wrong, but it's still the way society is. And then through intangible drivers, you realize that people gain energy more when you speak to them the way they want to be spoken to. Now, in terms of kind of practice, how do you feel like applying these methods? I mean, it's no different. It's not putting any more strain or stress on you. It's actually, I believe, maybe making your job easier.
100% it's making my job easier. And I'll just go back to a point that you just mentioned a little bit earlier about psychology kind of being steps like 1 to 10, and we're missing 1 and 2. And I know John said this before and you said it before, but I'll say it again now because it's really important. Step 1 is knowing a person's uniqueness, who they are at that intangible level. And step 2 is understanding a person's thought process. Yep. So, and knowing those two things. So I now, I've been working with you. I've been working with John. I understand about the model for the mind and brain, yeah. And I'm applying this in my work with my clients on a daily basis now, and it makes my job much easier. It makes I believe that it makes sessions more enjoyable for me, yeah, and my clients, because knowing how to understand who they are, their uniqueness, then being able to understand where their thought process is currently, I can, from session 1, tailor my approach to the person that is sitting in front of me right now and where they're at right now. And whereas previously, I've always valued that, that, and that's one of the core things that I value as a psychologist is, being able to connect with somebody on that, on that level of this being a person. And it's never, some of the approaches that are often used in psychology do take this kind of one-size-fits-all approach, and that's never sat comfortably with me, because I've always understood that what one person needs might be very different from what another person needs, and how we need to adapt and tailor what we're doing to suit that that person. So I've always kind of had that as, you know, one of my kind of core values, but I now know how to understand that a lot quicker than I did previously, so we can then really get into the helping, you know, kind of from session one, rather than, you know, lengthy assessments and doing all the kind of personality tests and you know, all these different things. It just means that, yeah, I'm able to get in there right from the first session and actually start helping people straight away.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you touched on there with the personality test and how we can gauge, because again, I can't fault them for what they are. I'm a disc practitioner myself, and that was how all this came about from a couple of years ago. And I'd met John, and all these things started opening up, led me to meet you. And just on the compassion side of thing, you know, when we look at the 7 different intangible drivers and we're compassionate, we can do another video and we can explain, or they can look on this channel and they can find out all the different whys and hows to gain a better understanding. In fact, I'm going to put a link on this video that they can do their own test, and they can come back and realize the value actually in it. Now, when it comes to compassion, right, being a compassion why, you can come across sometimes too soft, you can come across as too caring. Sometimes it's very difficult to not allow your own personal, oh, that's a shame, to kind of come out there, you know, and it's very difficult, especially when you're vibing and you're putting this through your client, to be able to, you know, we understand that you can't give a personal opinion because that's not doctor, you know, but with the intangible drivers, you can do it, but still in a professional manner where you're not allowing personal feelings to come in. It's a personal knowing, if that makes sense to you. So, or makes sense to other people. So you're still able to put yourself in because you know how you want to be spoken to, how you come across, what they see in you. Now, your main tool in your armory as a psychologist, in my belief, is the fact that you've got compassion there. You know, a compassion server. I want to feel you, to be able to serve you in whatever way I can to allow you to move forward. I mean, I don't think there's anything more beautiful ever been said in the whole land of psychology in my whole life. Excellent. Now, that was great. Now, John, can you tell me what your thoughts were, please, on the questions that Ellie and I were talking about?
Well, my first thought is that interviewer was amazing. Those 3 questions were outstanding. That guy should be a professional interviewer. So the first topic I thought was really great because Ellie's, Dr. Harper's first response was, she said, I already did these intangible drivers. And you and I've talked about this. I call it being a truth savant, someone who's unconsciously doing the truth, like you did, Colin. You're a truth savant. She was unconsciously doing it, but she didn't have words for it. So the intangible drivers don't make you be able to do these things. It just puts words or organizes what you're able to do. So she was already helping people, but she said this was helpful to her because it allowed her to have words to what she's doing and do it on purpose. So she said, intangible drivers is highly compatible with psychology. And she said it has to be a part of psychology and mental health. And the thing is the last thing I was going to say about her first answer was interesting is a lot of people learn these intangible drivers. There's 7 of them. You have a how and a why. There's 49 combinations. Oh, it's too complicated. You're already dealing with this right now. Every person you're dealing with, you're already trying to figure out which of the 49 they are unconsciously. Understanding this information makes what you're already trying to do less complicated.
Absolutely. And when I met you 18 months ago, John, or 19 months ago now, I had the same reaction as Ellie does. And Ellie had the same reaction with you as I did. It's just that I'm kind of further down the line with you than she is, and she's gaining energy so fast. She's able to change and actually still put it into practice with it has to go. And when you said it, and Ellie said it has to go together, if psychology is giving you steps 3 through 10, you need steps 1 to 10 to complete the cycle, to get people to gain energy, take them out the hole, move forward, and actually be better.
Right. So that's why she said it was so compatible. This is helping her be a psychologist. This isn't, she's not doing this and no longer being a psychologist. This is helping her because it's those steps 1 and 2. The second question you asked and her response to that was, I learned a lot from this. So she talked about transference and countertransference. I did not know what those terms were. I didn't know those terms existed, but you and I have talked about it we've talked about transference and countertransference without knowing those words. So we're truth savants the other way. And I talk about it like the best tool you have to influence somebody else is yourself.
Yeah.
We teach teachers with Instant Impact. We have this program, Instant Impact. We teach these teachers to focus on themselves, getting their mental health and their thought process right and flowing, because that influences the students. A teacher who's not in the right spot with the best factual information in the world cannot reach the student in a healthy manner. A teacher who's in a healthy thought process and in a good spot without any information is naturally going to help somebody else. So the thing is that what happens is, and we talk about this a lot, I talk about momentum. What's momentum? All these coaches talk about it and they can't define it. Momentum is humans physiologically syncing up their thought processes and being in the same spot. That's transference. Now I have a word for it. It's transference. So when you walk into a room at 80 focused and somebody's distracted at 160, you either need to bring them up, they'll bring you down. And if you don't come down to them and they won't come up to you, they'll get frustrated and go to what we call 320 trigger and rush out of the room. That's what's happening. So psychology doesn't have an explanation for how to do that, how to mediate that. So I thought that was really fascinating because she said there's all these different models for how to manage your energy versus someone else's energy. And is this my energy? Is that your energy? Is this my perspective? Is that your perspective? I could ask you a question. Your response could affect me in a way that I now am thinking that's me, and it changes my question. And her point was the intangible drivers is the way to dissolve all those issues. If you understand who you are uniquely, if you understand who the patient is uniquely or the client, then you understand what's coming from them and you understand what's coming from you, and you're not going to get that confused.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was incredible, you know, that psychology is she said they're very focused on this transference and countertransference. It's a big problem. There's a lot of models. There's no answer. Intangible drivers would dissolve that whole issue. And so we get to intuition. You and I have been doing these flow videos and talking about this 10 thought process. Some people say it's intuition. The problem is your unconscious feelings can come from your unconscious, which is like a supercomputer, or it can come from your conscience, which is something it's part of your unconscious, you have determined makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's why intuition is a bad word to use for this 10 thought process, because there's two things going on in these feelings. One thing is the truth, like a truth savant, your unconscious knows the truth. One thing is you have certain biases, and you and I talked about the conscience in a 3-part series and how complicated it is and how we can flip it and take ourselves off. So again, we have another measure, the unconscious versus the conscience, that would help psychologists deal with transference and countertransference.
Absolutely. And we'll put these links on this video when we post it out, because I think it's imperative that people watching this, that they read about the conscience and stuff as well. It's not just about what you can diagnose and what you can see.
Right. And so then the final answer that she had, I thought, was the one that I was waiting for all along. So I really loved her first 2 answers. Again, I learned a lot that way. I learned a lot about psychology, but her third answer was the thing I've seen for 15 years. And that is she says, this makes her job easier and more fun, which gets back to transference. If the psychologist is having fun, they're flowing, and then they get the patient into flow, and it's you. Half of the healing is coming from the psychologist frame of mind. What you do, Colin, when you meet with people, half of what you're doing is coming from you and your thought process. And that's what I wanted to bring back to psychology, is the human element. She said, too much of psychology says one size fits all. I call that being robot. We look at everybody as just generically the same. They're a robot, and we're going to factually fix them. We're missing half of our ability to reach people as humans. It's that vibing, it's that thought process. So if it's easier and more fun for the psychologist to do this, they can not only reach the client, but they can, and she said this, she goes, she can help people from the first session. And the one thing now, it's different over in Europe than America. In America, what has happened over the last 15 years is that a client will have like 4 to 7 visits covered by insurance. And then when the insurance runs out, they stop going to the therapist for any sort of help. The therapist can't help them before the insurance runs out, because the therapist is spending time figuring out who the patient is. Dr. Harper said it from the first session, and I've said this for 15 years. This is how I've helped, psychologists and therapists. I've said, you can take 15 minutes and figure this person out. And right from the first session, you can already start helping them. You will help this person before their insurance runs out.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if psychology doesn't want people to get well before the insurance runs out over here in America. I don't know if that's why none of the psychologists or therapists or people that I've helped in America have been willing to go public, so they don't tell people that, hey, there's a way to do this where we can actually be helping these people before their insurance runs out. But thank you to Dr. Ellie Harper for publicly stating what I've seen for 15 years, is that if a therapist or a counselor understood intangible drivers, they can help these people from the first session. And all of this is compatible, and it makes it easier and more fun for the psychologists. And it needs to be a part of psychology and mental health.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Dr. Harper, Ellie, whatever we want to call her, we love her to death because she's willing to come forward and really make that step into making a bigger difference. I love what psychologists do. I love the fact that they're well educated, they're well up to speed in things. I love the fact that they're willing to go out. But again, having a job that you're doing all the time and you're not now gaining fun because it's now routine. Imagine being able to make that routine into fun every day and working things out and gaining energy through yourself. I mean, this is the main point of what we're looking to do. And once you've helped yourself and you flow and you're in that way of yourself, you can then properly help others. And it makes a huge difference to your life and the client.
Well, her, and this is my final point. Her point in that last answer was you have to connect to the person.
100%.
And that's the key to all of this, is how are you connecting to the person? These intangible drivers will help you intentionally, immediately connect to the person. And that's what we do in the school system. We help these teachers connect with the students, and they're the best at connecting with the students. We just help them do it intentionally. And every success the teacher has with the student is the teacher's success. Every success that the teacher has in their own life and the happiness and the well-being, we consider that our success at Flowcess.
Yeah, and we're not just talking psychologists, we're talking coaches, therapists, teachers, we're talking everyone that's out to help somebody else has to help themselves first. And that is the main point. So thank you. And again, we'll thank Dr. Harper again for coming on because it was great. And we look forward to working with her further. Thank you very much, John. Take care.
Bye.